This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
We're back in the lab with Reggie and Luke. Another episode of Superior Sports brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. What's happening, Reggie?
What's up, man? We got a decisive Game 5 tonight, and I was reading a stat. Every team who wins Game 5 has an 82% chance of winning the series.
So better than 4 out of 5. If you win this game tonight, better than 4 out of 5 chances you're taking this series home.
Yep. So when we say it's decisive, people like to say, let's not use hyperbole and all that. But no, like, it kind of is. Like, right. It kind of dictates. And wouldn't it be cool if the Wolves can win tonight and then come back on Friday on their home floor and take the thing home?
Man, does this state not just deserve something special like that? At home, no less, for that crowd, for those fans to be able to enjoy something like that.
Do it for the people.
Would be unbelievable. Do for the people. All right, yeah, like Reggie said, jam-packed show for you guys, putting Cat in Game 5 under the microscope. Minnesota Vikings front office, what they better not do during this weekend's NFL draft. And everyone's favorite segment, What Does It Mean? With their very own Reggie Wilson. I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat, covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports. It's all coming up on Superior Sports Talk. But first, make sure to check out our other daily show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's the Ron Johnson Show, featuring former Gopher and NFL receiver Ron Johnson and producer Sam Ekstrom. Get the daily opinions of an athlete turned broadcaster. Ron Johnson tells it like it is, whether it's Vikings, Gophers, Wolves, and Twins. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel or podcast feeds so you never miss an episode. All right, when it comes to the Timberwolves and dissecting their playoff series, nobody gets more attention on the court and in the media than the leader, Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns, who had entered the season with just one playoff appearance in 6 seasons when they were manhandled by the number 1 seeded Houston Rockets in 2018, losing 4-1, has often faced questions of his emotional immaturity during his career and ability to put the team on his back and carry the franchise deep into the playoffs. Between the Clippers and Grizzlies in the last 5 games, Cat has put up a few clunkers and been a no-show in 3 of those contests and forced his teammates to pick up the slack when he's been out of sync. However, Game 4, we talked about it a few days ago. He got angry. You saw the real Cat stand up, putting 33 points up, 14 boards, flashing that ability again to be the true leader in critical situations. Reggie, it's year 7 now. Many say he is the best, most talented big man in the league. And questions still remain about that emotional ability to become the head boss on a young team like Minnesota that needs it, especially in the playoffs, where Cat's career, again, is now just 3-6 in postseason play. My question for you is, just how pivotal is this series going to be when we look back, when the dust settles, when we evaluate Cat's overall abilities as the leader? A legacy may be a strong word this early in his career, but how does that change if they win? And what does it look like if they let this series slip away?
So I'm not big on making these big sweeping, things about these players. So what's interesting about Cat is, it's year 7, but, he's still a young guy, man. He's still trying to figure it out. Like, this is only the second time that he's made the postseason in his career. And to really kind of like define a guy by his second ever like playoff series is kind of messed up, don't you think? Like, I feel like it's not fair to him as a player to really kind of define, what his career is and who he is based on this one, experience, like his one real meaningful experience as the guy. Because, the first time it was kind of like, this is Jimmy Butler's team. And now it actually is Cat's team, and he's figuring some things out. He's had some clunkers. He's gotten mad. He stormed out of pressers, upset. And, this is just all a part of, I feel like, the maturation. Now, what I think it does do is if he does lead his team to a series win, I do think it kind of like gets his detractors off of his back a little bit, because there seems to be so many of them. And I think that was one of the interesting things that I thought when I was kind of seeing the narrative surrounding him after some of the bad games that he's had. A lot of people were just so quick to just dunk on him. Like there's a lot of people that wouldn't be able to dunk on him in real life, but there was a lot of fans that were, and other just like national media pundits and all that, just kind of like, just really like giving him a hard time for his performances. And I think you kind of got to give him a little grace to figure things out. And I think what he's showing is that he can, and he will. He has been a little too emotional at times. He has been a little too erratic at times with his play. He has been a little too foul troubled with his play. But, I think what the last game showed is that he is capable and he can figure it out. And I think he is figuring things out. Now, he could come out tonight and have another clunker and, have people all upset with him. I saw people saying that he should be traded. I'm like, you guys are crazy. Are you crazy? Yes, you're crazy. Because like the guy has shown his ability. He's proving his mettle in the postseason right now. Like the hope is this is the start of a long stretch of meaningful playoff runs for the Timberwolves, and you would hope to see that there won't be several playoff X's in the first round. You would hope to see that this team will continue to glue and mature together and start to figure things out and really start to win. I mean, Anthony Edwards is going to be even better moving forward. You could be talking about Cat and Ant forming the new age Kobe and Shaq type situation. You know what I mean? Like those two guys are on the rise. And so I think it's tough to really just kind of, peg this as being some type of defining series for Cat, because I still feel like he's figuring things out.
I mean, I love rooting for Cat. Again, ultra talented, makes the league a better league to watch. Young, fun, exciting, makes everybody around him better. But I think, again, when you play devil's advocate, is it fair? Probably not. But that's just what is going to happen. That's part of being a professional athlete. That's what the media's job is going to do. When you're in year 7, it's hard to sit there and say what year 8 is going to be the magic year 9. But I understand what you're saying. He is a young guy. It's great that he's got 7 years under his belt, but he doesn't have a lot of postseason experience yet. And it's tough to define somebody's career, certainly at this point, with just 1 or 2 playoff series. Great point, by the way. That was Jimmy Butler's team in 2018. We already know Cat, Ant, Ja Morant, they get all the screen time and attention, but there is a handful of other names that always end up having such a huge impact on the outcome of these pivotal playoff games. We've seen that already. In Game 4, you can't not mention Jordan McLaughlin comes off the bench. Tightly contested game out of nowhere. 4 for 4 from 3, 5 for 6 from the floor, puts up a quick but huge 16 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, ends the night with a plus-minus, a +6. Reggie, who's another bench or role guy you think could be another X factor on a smaller scale like McLaughlin in Game 5 tonight for either team?
All right, so I got a couple ideas, but, I think this game tonight is going to be interesting from a big man standpoint. And so I could see Naz Reid coming off the bench and playing some big minutes for this team, especially, rowdy, raucous crowd. If Cat somehow, hopefully not, but he gets into some foul trouble or something like that, you need another guy. Memphis got some bigs, man, with Tillman and Clark and Adams. Even though Adams has kind of been
Adams
barbecue
not even
chicken.
Playing.
Yeah, he's not really playing a lot, but the Wolves kind of have to match those guys, and Reed can kind of bang in there with those guys. But I think the role player that really is the X factor for me and has to be every game is Malik Beasley. Really didn't do anything in that last game, Like, I don't even think he scored a point
Quiet.
in that last game.
It was quiet.
And he's the guy. He's the spark plug. Come off the bench, lighting up threes, driving to the basket, getting to the rim. I think he's the guy, especially on the road, that can kind of calm things down. If Memphis goes on, a run, or they get a big high energy basket or something like that, he can come back down on the other end, get open, and splash the three from the corner to kind of quiet things down and keep the Wolves going. I'm looking at him to be the guy because he has been that guy really all season. He's come up big in big moments all season. It's cool that they have the luxury of a Jordan McLaughlin to come off the bench and give him 16 points in that last game. But thank God for him, because if
Right.
he didn't, like, who was? Because nobody else was doing it. And
they needed every point. They needed every point too.
And you're looking usually at Malik Beasley to be that guy off the bench. That's why he's there. And you want to see a little bit more from him tonight.
Yeah, I'll give you one more on the other side. People already know the name. You've seen him. Apple Valley native, Tyus Jones. Guy comes off the bench. Always good for double-digit points, helping create positive plays for his team when he's on the court. Something about playing against the team he grew up watching, maybe, back where he won a state title inside the Target Center. Remember, he was perfect from three-point range during that Game 3 comeback when the Grizzlies came back down 26 points. Don't forget about Tyus Jones. Maybe just another under-the-radar X factor. Check them all out tonight in Game 5, back in Memphis, 6:30 Central Standard Time. Rest assured, Reggie and I will be here tomorrow to break it all down. All right, we're almost there. Just 48 hours to the NFL draft.
Woo!
Reggie and I are getting ready to discuss what we don't want to see the Vikings do on draft night. But first, do you want smart post-game reaction from insiders that cover your favorite teams? Check out Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts on YouTube or wherever to get your podcast. Instant reactions from our Locked On team hosts, along with prominent reporters like Kevin Gorg for the Wild and Brandon Warren for the Twins. No fluff, just 10 minutes of straight analysis after each game. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube and never miss a podcast. Okay, Reggie, 2 more days, 2022 NFL Draft. Arguably, I know you're not a huge draft guy, but arguably the most wild and crazy, unpredictable draft that we've seen in years. And I'll tell you why, because we don't know who's going inside the top 10, the top 5. Even the number 1 pick is still up for grabs and a mystery here on Tuesday morning as we sit here recording. So when it comes to the Vikings, it's even tougher to predict who's going to be there when they're on the clock with the 12th pick. But when they do, after reading all the mocks, listening to the experts, what's a scenario or decision that you absolutely do not want to see unfold when it comes to the new front office and their draft day decisions?
I would hope that they don't draft a punter. I would hope.
There's a good. It's a punter class this year. It's a good class.
I would hope.
I don't want to get Mel Kiper on you, but this is a deep class for punters. All right. No. I'm teasing.
I would hope that they don't draft Mike Zimmer. I really think that Andy and everybody is in play. There are mock drafts. I got notifications on Twitter last night that there are mock drafts that are seeing the Vikings take a wide receiver at number 12, and most people would be like, they don't even need that. But it's like, if your guy, we talked about it before. If your guy is not there,
yep.
Draft best player available. And if the best player available is Chris Olave or, Drake London or, Gary Wilson falls down, like, take the guy. Take the guy and go and put up 50 points every week. You know what I mean? Like, just do it. And so I think what's interesting is I can't recall a draft in recent years that I just had no idea what to expect at all. Like, no idea what to expect. Like, and the Vikings have that weird spot being at 12 because last year they were in the midst of being a middling team and trying to actually win and get to the playoffs as well. And it's like, there you go, reward, you get the 12th pick. And I think what's tough is, like, there are quote unquote premium picks in the draft, but I just I'm really not trusting all the evaluations of these guys this year. You know what I mean? Like, I just
Yeah.
don't really know. And
Yep.
so, like, there are people that are like, well, no, like McDuffie would be a great pick at 12 if they lose out on Stingley. And then there are other people that are like, you don't want McDuffie in the pick. He has, short arms. He's not tall enough. He's this, he's that. That would be a reach at 12. And it's just like, okay, who's right?
Right.
Who's wrong?
Right.
Like and to every year there's some level of that in the draft anyway. But it's just like, man, like I just don't really know what to believe and what to trust. And if it's like that for me, I can only imagine what it's like for Kwesi and those guys that are evaluating talent to figure out what the heck do they. I mean, they could even grab a quarterback for all we know. Who knows?
Normally, you go into a year and you know who the number one pick is almost a month before the draft. It's just so clean cut. Maybe usually it's a quarterback, Joe Burrow, somebody like that, right? Trevor Lawrence. But then you can start going down the line, the domino effect, and go, all right, well, we know what one is. Make an educated guess on 2, then 3, then 4. This year, we got no idea who's going number 1. And even when you go through each position, 22 starting positions, besides Kyle Hamilton at safety from Notre Dame, I think every position, there's no clear-cut number 1 prospect there either. It's a debate. Is it Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley? Is it Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett? Is it Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker at running back? Ultimately, here's my answer, and this might sting you a little bit, so put the earmuffs on, Reggie, if you can't handle it. But the draft, it's all about value. And maximizing the value of the board, the way that falls according to the depth at each position, given the year, given the class. And I promise you, there's so much depth at wide receiver in the second and third tier that if you pick one at 12, by the time you come back to 46 in the second round, I think Kwesi and KOC would be kicking themselves and just see how many great receivers are still on the board, staring them in the face. Guys like Sky Moore from Western Michigan, John Mechie, the other Alabama receiver towards ACL, Jahan Dotson from Penn State in the Big Ten, Alec Pierce, Cincinnati. There's tons of them. I go on and on. Unless he's Jameson Williams, who I think is the next Tyreek Hill, that rare blue chip can't miss prospect. I think he's a guy that should be talked about as a top 5 pick, but because of the knee injury, maybe he falls to the Vikings. You should be thanking your lucky stars if he's still on the board at 12. If you want a receiver, that's the only name I'll accept. If that's the direction they go, it's a huge wasted opportunity from a value standpoint, with just so much depth and so many big names left staring you in the face in rounds 2 and 3 later on. I think there's still so many question marks on the other side of the ball, too. You have to go defense one way or the other with that 12th pick. D-line or secondary, add more young talent for Ed Donatel, and then you go offense later on. You can maximize the value of such a rich class. You talked about, some people say Trent McDuffie, love him, take him at 12. Trent McDuffie, you don't want him. I think a lot of people with McDuffie, just for example, to round this out, is that they don't like McDuffie at 12, but all of a sudden the same guy would say, oh, but I'll take him at 18 or 20. So you're talking about really, I mean, what's the difference? If you like a guy, you just take him. Go get your guys, as I like to say. But I think, again, it goes back to people want to maximize value. The draft is your currency in the NFL. Your draft picks is your bank account, the money, the way you can go get superstars or trade for a Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill. And I think, again, GMs and teams and even fans understand how important maximizing that value is. Speaking of the uncertainty of the number 1 overall pick, again, last 3 months, all Aiden Hutchinson. That's the name on the Jaguars card. But all of a sudden, we get to the week of the draft, and here we are. Vegas, of all people, has changed the odds-on favorite to Georgia's Travon Walker, the other premier edge rusher, after his stock continued to rise following one of the most impressive combine workout performances a lot of people have ever seen. So while Walker doesn't have the sack production like Hutchinson, he does have the higher ceiling. So, Reggie, is it the right move for the Jaguars to be leaning towards passing on Hutchinson for Walker? And more importantly, just in general, how important and influential has this combine become for the draft stock of some of these prospects?
Man, that combine
That was wild.
it shouldn't sway teams one way or another.
You get
As
4 or
far
5 years down the road and you go, why did I get so caught up in a 40 time? You
as
know,
that's
watch
my
the tape.
thing. That's my thing.
Watch the
They
tape.
put everything on tape.
Yep.
Like they put it all on tape. And I do think that, there are times when you watch a guy at the combine and you're like, oh man, like, cause I did a story, where I sat down one-on-one with Boye Mafe.
I love that.
All right.
Yep.
But he impressed in the Senior Bowl. He had a couple sacks and he became the team MVP in the Senior Bowl. Now that is something that I can get with. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then he ran a 4.53 40 at the combine. And you're like, oh. And so I think sometimes you maybe you watch a guy on film and you say, oh, well, I just don't know how, bendy he is or how athletic, he truly is. And then you see at the combine that a guy runs a 4.53 and you're like, oh, okay, he's athletic. He's much more athletic than I thought he was, or oh my goodness, that is eye-popping athleticism for a guy his size. And so I think sometimes maybe the combine can aid in, how you peg a guy, but all we've seen since the latter part of the season, end of the season, Aiden Hutchinson, he's dominating. He's doing his thing. And, he's a Heisman hopeful. And, like everything that we've seen is he's the guy. And now all of a sudden, Georgia, wins and it's this guy, that is, talented in his own right, in Travon Walker, and he does great things on the naked Olympic side of it,
Underwear Olympics. I love it.
but it's like don't say, but it would be a total Jaguars thing to do.
Wouldn't it,
they were the only team that paid Christian Kirk the number that he got paid this offseason.
Ruin the market. The market.
The Jaguars are gonna Jaguar. Yep. And so I wish them the best with the pick, obviously. Never want to see anybody like do bad or anything. But like, it's like, okay, if you guys psych yourself out of taking what many believe is a slam dunk in this thing, like, God bless you for it. Do you? Because it's like Joe Burrow, a couple years ago was the guy. But there were murmurs back then about, maybe you take Herbert number one, maybe not Burrow. It's like, come on, man. And now we've seen that you really couldn't miss with either guy, but like, don't psych yourself out. Like, we saw all of the cool things that Burrow did. He put it on tape. One of the best seasons for a college quarterback ever. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't know, he only really had the one great year of prominence and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, you do all these. I think that's why the draft process to me is too long, because like after a while, you almost trick yourself out of making what
you
is
get in your head a little bit.
Yeah. And it's just
absolutely.
like, come on, guys. Like you guys knew what the board dictated 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And now you get to the week of and you're just like, well, but this other guy, I don't know. And then now you're looking at this is a move. You hope to never be picking number one, again, but this is a move that is going to radically change the direction of your franchise. And you don't want to be out there on a whim or on a hunch when you've seen the guy on tape put together the resume to make him be the number one overall pick, and that's Aiden Hutchinson.
I'll never forget, about 15 years ago, Vernon Davis showed up. He was like, border first round pick, maybe, shows up, 255 pounds, runs a 4.38, put up 42 bench reps as a tight end, and then he ends up skyrocketing up the boards. He goes like 5th or 6th overall. And he had a good career. Don't get me wrong. He had a solid career. But again, the influence that this combine has on these GM scouts and coaches is like you said, probably a little bit too much. Trust the tape. Darius Hayward-Bay comes in, runs a 4.3 40. He wasn't even being talked about in the first round. Runs a 4.3 40. That was back when, 20 different guys didn't show up to Indy and run these 4.3 40s. Runs a blazing 4.3 40. He goes 7th overall to Al Davis and the Raiders. Needless to say, Al Davis didn't trust the tape. I think Aiden Hutchinson should be the pick. Trent Baalke and the Jaguars, otherwise just gift wrapping Aiden Hutchinson, the hometown kid, to Detroit. The line should be there. Very thankful. Send a thank you card over to that. All right. It's going to be the wildest first round, though. I'm telling you, it's going to be a wild, wild first round. Maybe the wildest we've seen. Reggie and I be here Friday, recap all the action. All right. It's that time in the show for my favorite segment when we go around the latest news circulating the Twin Cities and ask our own Reggie Wilson, what does it mean? Reggie, time to go through the gauntlet. You ready to roll?
Let's do it.
The Golden State Warriors and Dallas Mavericks are up 1 game away from advancing to the conference semifinals. Suns and Pelicans are tied up 2 games apiece. What does it mean for the Timberwolves' chances and odds of reaching the big show as you look at the landscape of the Western Conference playoffs as they've played out thus far, just given how each team has looked so far in their respective series matchup? I mean, is there one team that's just blowing you away even if the Wolves win this one and squeak by the grit, man, they ain't getting past Golden State or Dallas or anything? What have you taken away from the playoffs so far in the Western Conference?
I think that everyone is beatable in the Western Conference. If you would have told me this before, I would have said, okay, yeah, nobody's touching the Phoenix Suns. Then Book strains his hamstring, and now the Phoenix Suns look extra pedestrian. You know what I mean? And now it's just okay, Golden State scares me because, they got this new death lineup with, Poole and Steph and Clay and Wiggins and Draymond. And, Poole is averaging like 75,000 points a game now in the playoffs. And so, that's a little scary to me. But even Denver, beat them the last game. And it's like, oh, okay, even they can get beat. I think what I've seen from the Timberwolves is, as talented as Memphis is, and they are extremely talented, the Timberwolves are talented too. And if they play their game on the floor and not up here, they can beat anybody. And so I think that kind of gives some confidence as we see these playoffs play out. Really, the team to me that looks like they are just otherworldly good right now are the Boston Celtics. And they're on the other side, so you don't even have to worry about them right now. Okay, if the Wolves can get out of this first round and then they got to go face the Warriors, man, that's a brutal road. But like you said, everybody looks beatable. Everybody's got a little bit of kink in their armor. Nobody's untouchable right now. And as you mentioned, the Wolves, as far as talent goes, just top to bottom, I mean, who's kidding who? If I was an opposing team, this is a team that I would not want to play because they got nothing to lose. They're the lower seed. Hey, all the pressure's on you guys. And the talent, oh my gosh, the talent, again, matches up with any team top to bottom. Next one, Wild won again in overtime over the Nashville Predators, 5-4, giving them 5 victories in a row. Now with just 3 games remaining, they're tied with the Blues for second place in the Central. What does it mean for their chances to hold on to that higher seed with the Coyotes, Flames, and Avalanche to round out their schedule? We just keep saying it, man. They just got to keep winning. They just got to keep winning. And just kind of maybe hope the Blues stub their toe. It was just funny because we ran some sound with Kevin Fiala last night on the 6 o'clock show. And he was just like, man, they just keep winning, talking about the Blues. He's like, we just got to hope that they stop.
Wild keep winning, but so do the Blues.
Yeah, and it's like, dang, man, you ever go hard in your workout and you're just like, man, I killed it today. Killed it today. And then you look over and this dude is just totally just showing you up and you're just like, dang, man,
jacked.
I'm over here doing my thing too. Why you over here trying to show me up? What you doing? It's the same thing with the Blues. And it's just look, whether or not they keep winning or not, it just makes for a better story, when you have to overcome them in the playoffs to get to where you want to go.
Last one, Byron Buxton's 2 late inning home runs single-handedly catapulted the Twins over the White Sox, helping them win 4 games in a row, 3 of which Buxton played in. When Buxton is in the lineup, the Twins are 6-4 on the year. Without him, an underwhelming 2-4. What does it mean when it comes to just how valuable, we talk about it, but seriously, just how valuable is Buxton to the Twins lineup? And given the history, do you think they have any shot to be successful if he finds himself back on the DL?
So what's interesting about this is we were just actually having this discussion in our sports office yesterday. Byron Buxton is a dude, okay? Like, point blank.
He's that dude.
He's the dude. He's him.
He's that dude.
He's him. And what is interesting is like, one of my coworkers argued that, the best ability is availability, but when he is available, he is showing that he is worth the money that they have paid him. Now, the tough part is like, if he inevitably gets hurt, now you kind of have to deal with the consequences of not having him. And so I said, well, look, what if Byron misses like 60 games this year? And my coworker Josh was just like, if he's going to produce like he's been producing when he is in the lineup, I think you can maybe live with him missing the 60 games, because maybe, Correa will wake up and he'll start to be a guy that can be dependable in that lineup. And, Sanchez can turn the corner, and, the other pieces around them, can pick up the slack. Sano can, maybe not strike out as much and hit some balls out of the park. But what I think is you hope for best case scenario, which is he misses the least games as possible. But with him, health is always a factor, and so it's just like, look, maybe you can depend on him to stay on the field, but if he misses just, I don't know, a fifth, a sixth of the games this year, maybe they can still do what they need to do.
Last year and even the year before that, when you looked at the games Buxton played in with the Twins and when he didn't, it was insane. I'm talking like on pace to win 91 games versus without him like 70. Like, it was wild. And I think you're right. They can squeeze by. I mean, it's just Buxton's style of play, right? He's probably going to get dinged up and miss some games. But if he can just skate by with, just like you said, missing that 15, 20, 25 games, I think you got a shot. Anything more than that starts to get a little dicey. All right, he made it through the gauntlet. Thanks for joining us today in today's episode of Superior Sports Talk. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcast. Join us every day for another episode covering all the hot topics in Minnesota sports. He's Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV and on KARE11. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports, part of the Locked On Sports Podcast Network. Until then, he's Reggie. I'm Luke. Signing out.
Peace. Be blessed. Spread love today.
This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota.